Thank you all for the input. Some really good advice and bitter medicine was offered. Notifications are off now. I need to go calm down and work things out with the most important person in my life. I hope they'll see it that way too and start helping out for real. Many of you are asking for more context. 1. My partner is not a man-child. They just got used to me doing most of the household tasks over the last few years because, frankly, I genuinely enjoy cooking, and our schedules just worked out that way. It was never really a friction point up until now. 2. Yes, we both work full-time. 3. Yes, I do drive most of the decisions in our home and relationship, but it's hardly ever without discussion. That's because my partner is generally very chill, and that's how our dynamic has been. 4. Why do you all assume I'm a wife? Plot twist. We're gay, both in our 30s, been together for 5 years. The following might read a little ranty, so please bear with me. The past few months have been very tough on my spouse and me. I'm going through some big life changes by deciding to go back to college. Basically, I want to improve my family's financial circumstances by first going back to school. Before I started school, we discussed the kind of support I would need. Emotional support, and probably more importantly, tangible, practical support like help with domestic tasks. Simple things. For example, he would walk the dog in the evenings so I could cook, or vice versa. I can't do it all. Things have been mounting. We agreed to take turns taking out the garbage. I had to remind them to take out the garbage 3 times before they actually did it. Yes, I got angry after the 3rd time. Reminders don't hurt, but I do find it irritating. I might as well have done it myself with all the mental energy I'm expending, remembering this and that and all the things. They told me they didn't see the big deal, and I had to explain to them that small, everyday tasks add up for me. And now that I have a new responsibility, I reminded them that I need their help and cooperation. Since then, we've come up with a system, I think. A whiteboard so that they will be reminded visually and I don't need to keep poking at them. Their turn is coming up, so we'll see if this actually works. I'm hopeful. Recently, a friend brought over a meal for us. I was so exhausted from the day I was going to sleep with an empty stomach, and my spouse kindly brought the pre-made food to me in bed. I was grateful. When I was finished, and they were still out of bed, I handed them the container and asked them to place it on the floor next to the door. He asked why. I said it was because so the cat wouldn't knock it down. Then he said, well, I don't think the cat will do that. Then it became an argument about the probability of the cat breaking our friend's container. Besides not wanting to risk breaking my friend's nice glass container, I have other reasons. The area on the floor by the door is where I put things in the morning that need to go to the car or kitchen. My spouse doesn't know this system because I wake up 2 hours before they do. Yes, I reacted and immediately felt frustrated that I had to explain to him why I wanted it on the ground, and I felt that it was such a simple request that he could have, and should have, simply done the thing I asked them to. I'm not perfect. I have a hard time controlling the tone and volume of my voice. I can be terse, and that is often attributed to being aggressive. I can start getting louder, but I don't even realize it, especially when I'm stressed. I want to try harder to communicate in a well-received way, but sometimes I feel very frustrated that it feels like it's all on me to change. Why doesn't my partner have to make adjustments too? Where is their effort? I don't see their efforts to contribute to this home and relationship. I take care of most domestic tasks while trying to better our lives for the future. They do the bare minimum, and frankly, I'm starting to lose respect for them for that, and I'm really worried about that. I'm starting to find them to be unobservant and selfish. They accuse me of wanting someone who will do what they're told, and honestly, they're not wrong. Sometimes, yes, I just want a task completed. I shouldn't have to badger or explain why. I'm very busy, and he's not. Am I being unreasonable by asking them to change their actions and behaviors, given that my daily life is changing too? Is it unfair of me to expect him to do some of the daily chores while I'm back in school? What should I do to bring peace back into the home? It was a long post. Thank you for reading if you made it this far. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Okay, so I think there are 2 sides here. On the one hand, Yes, of course, our partners are there to support us, and it is frustrating when your partner does not pick up the slack when you need them to. Chores should be split equally, and this sounds really frustrating. On the other hand, I don't think your mental framing of this is fair. You're basically saying, I am changing, so you have to change too. Like when you sat down and said you were going back to college and you would need more from him. Was that actually a back and forth discussion? Did he voluntarily and enthusiastically agree that he would take on these extra responsibilities? Or did you just say it would have to happen? You are taking this on to improve both of your lives for the future. Does he agree about what improving both of your lives for the future even means? You married this person when they were already a fully formed adult, and you don't get to unilaterally decide how both of you grow and change over time. Dealing with change in yourself and your partner over decades is what people are talking about when they say relationships take work. Comment 2. Tale as old as time. Google, she left me over the dishes, and you should have asked. It's his house too. He shouldn't need to be told to take out the trash. He should see it full and take it out. But he does not care. He doesn't care about the fact that you're carrying the entire mental load. He doesn't care that you're in school and can't handle it all anymore. You're beginning to resent him, if you don't already, and that's one of the 4 horsemen of divorce. Once there's resentment, your marriage is circling the drain. You both need couples counseling so you can actually hash this out. But it might be easier to end it. When you're single, you'll have to do the same amount of chores, but you no longer have to carry his mental load. I married the same guy. My anxiety went away when I divorced. I feel so at peace now. Now for the update. I'm back with an update on the relationship drama I posted about before. I'll recap a bit, but for the full story, check my last post. So basically, me and my partner had been arguing non-stop about chores and communication. I thought a new whiteboard system would help, but after a week, it was clear it wasn't working at all. Like, hello? How can I be the only one taking this seriously? The whiteboard was just a constant reminder that my partner wasn't doing their part. Still coming home to a messy house, still having to do all the cooking and cleaning, and still being the only one who cared about getting stuff done. I was coming home from class one day, dead tired, and the garbage was still sitting there. This was literally one of the tasks we agreed my partner would handle. So I decided to leave the garbage right by the front door. I thought maybe that would jog their memory. Yeah, not so much. My partner walks in and flips out about the trash being there and goes off on me about being passive-aggressive. Like, really? Are you hearing yourself? I explain that I'm just trying to communicate, but they insist I'm overreacting. They say they didn't notice the garbage when they were already in a bad mood, and now I'm just making it worse. So I suggest we sit down and have a real talk about everything, but they act like I'm being demanding and need to chill out. We both agree to work on our communication, but honestly, I have my doubts. Nothing changed, and the same issues kept coming up. It got even worse when we went to a family dinner at my parents' house. My partner made a snarky comment about me being a control freak right in front of my family. Like, what in the actual hell? My dad made it worse by joking about how they should lighten up, and my partner just laughed. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay. She could tell something was off, and I appreciated her concern. My mom suggested that my partner might not be ready for all the changes, and that made me think. Before I could say anything, though, my partner suggested that we take a weekend trip to unwind. At first, I thought it was a good idea. We really needed a break from all the arguing, but the trip was pretty much a disaster. My partner spent the entire time on their phone, totally ignoring me. Like, hello? I'm right here trying to connect with you, and you're glued to your screen like a zombie. So we ended up having a confrontation at a diner where we stopped for food. I just couldn't take it anymore. I told them this isn't just about chores. It's like I'm talking to a wall. My partner says they need a break from talking about chores and just wanted to relax. I can't believe they would pull this crap on a weekend getaway meant to save our relationship. We left the diner in silence, and the mood was thick. I was done. When we got home, I told my partner I needed a break from the relationship. They were not happy. I made it clear we needed some space to think things through, but they just kept overreacting. I packed a bag and decided to stay with a family member for a while. During that time, my partner sent me a ton of texts trying to convince me to come home. I didn't respond. I needed to really think about things without being overwhelmed. Weeks passed and they kept calling and texting. I just ignored them. Then one day, my partner showed up at my family member's house unannounced. Talk about a surprise visitor. A confrontation ensued, with them demanding to talk things over right then and there. I said we could meet at a neutral location. No way I was letting them into my temporary home. We met at a coffee shop, and it was awkward as hell. We ended up talking about some deeper issues too, like resentment about past decisions. My partner feels like I've changed the rules on them with no warning. They walked away from that meeting saying they needed to think. Things have been pretty quiet since then. No texts, no calls. I'm just focusing on myself right now and trying to figure out what I really want. Edit. The relationship is still on pause. I haven't heard from my partner since our last meeting. I think they're giving me space to figure things out. My family has been supportive, and I've been focusing on my studies and well-being. I'm considering my options carefully before making any decisions. Am I the idiot for calling out my husband's gaming obsession and flirty texts with another woman? My husband and I have been married for 17 years and together for 20. For most of that time, our relationship was everything one could hope for. We've always enjoyed spending time together, especially since he works for me, so being around each other constantly was something we both loved. About 3 or 4 years ago, he started playing a game on his phone. I saw him playing it often, but assumed it was just a harmless game. Over time, he became obsessed with his phone, staying up late and falling asleep on the couch in our basement. I now consider the basement living room his bedroom because he rarely sleeps in ours anymore. This past year has been the worst of our marriage. He has become angry, short-tempered, and often raises his voice at me. He stays up all night and sleeps through most of the next day, sometimes even wearing the same clothes for days at a time. He's distant and disconnected from what used to be a shared life. It feels like he's always somewhere else. His work has suffered, and I've had to cover for him. My family and friends have noticed too, and I've made excuses for him. I thought we were going through a rough patch and that if I waited it out, things would eventually improve. Last week, a text came through on his phone while he was asleep on the couch. I saw the notification, picked up his phone, and read the message, along with many others. It was a long chain of communication between my husband and a woman I've never heard of, with texts going back and forth at all hours of the night. I woke him up immediately, and he told me she was just someone from the game. He was angry that I was upset. He went back to the basement, slamming the door. The next morning, he was calmer and tried to convince me I was overreacting. The next day, I checked his call and text logs online. The phones are paid for by the company I own, so I have access. There were 2-hour-long text sessions with hundreds of messages, and these were happening regularly. While there weren't many calls, the few that existed lasted up to 70 minutes, often in the middle of the night. When I confronted him again, he claimed he didn't remember the calls, even though one had been just 2 weeks earlier. He said it was related to the game, where players sometimes wake each other to get online. I started reading on Reddit about Discord, and I discovered he had an account there, which he joined a year ago, around the time our problems started. I logged in and saw numerous exchanges between him and this woman. While they weren't explicitly inappropriate, the messages were flirty and suggestive. She had even sent him recordings of herself singing vulgar songs. After reading her general conversations with others, it became clear that this was her usual behavior: flirtatious, vulgar, and attention-seeking. Now for an update. It's been a week of confronting him with evidence, and each time he admits the bare minimum and denies the rest until I find more proof. He always has excuses, even for texts and calls that no longer appear on his phone but are clearly listed in the usage logs. I also asked if he spent money on the game. Initially, he said hundreds, But when I checked his bank account, we added each other to our accounts when we married, I discovered that over the past 30 months, he had spent $6,500 on the game. He kept all of this from me for so long, and when I found out, he repeatedly lied. He's been gaslighting me throughout this whole ordeal. He has since deleted the game from his phone, and I confirmed it's not on his work computer either. He also deleted and blocked the woman's number at my request. He keeps telling me he loves me and that he's sorry for hurting me. He claims he got caught up in the game and the culture surrounding it, with no intention beyond fitting in. While I believe he's genuinely sorry now, I'm struggling to trust him moving forward. If I hadn't found out, who knows how far this would have gone. At this point, I'm less worried about this woman and more concerned about his self-control and his ability to live a responsible adult life. I'm feeling an overwhelming mix of emotions: depression, sadness, anxiety, fear, loneliness, and grief, with anger being the least of them. I don't want a divorce unless it's the last option. I don't want to throw away 20 years of my life unless there's no other choice. But right now, I feel like I don't have any good options. Any practical advice would be appreciated. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. There is no point in you trying to avoid identifying the culprit. Gaming is not ruining your marriage. Your husband is. Cheating happens when there are issues in the marriage and one partner seeks a connection outside of it. Your marriage was in trouble when he started playing video games. Video games are particularly used by men to avoid reality. While playing, they don't have to confront life and feelings, and gaming becomes an obsession. Everyone has a choice to cheat or not cheat when the opportunity arises. He chose to cheat. He chose to avoid fixing your marriage and chose her for a whole year. Men who gaslight are cowards. They are caught in a lie and refuse to admit to wrongdoing, preferring to defer blame and gaslight. This behavior is selfish and cruel. His systematic reactions to your showing evidence are gaslighting you, thus delaying facing consequences. He has made his choice so far. He chooses her over your 20-year marriage. He is willing to leave you alone in a room, hanging with your feelings in your throat, and go to the basement and slam the door. He is not concerned with how you are doing. He is also financially reckless. He is putting all this money into the game to keep this relationship going with her and lying about it. Your marriage is over. He has checked out. All that remains is your acceptance of it. Stop trying to prove he is lying to him. Do it for you. Comment 2. There is a book I would recommend you read called Not Just Friends by Shirley Glass. It talks about emotional affairs and healthy boundaries in marriages. It sounds like he was having an emotional affair with this woman, which can be just as damaging as a physical affair. He was trickle-truthing you with information, requiring you to dig to find the truth. I would highly recommend marriage counseling. He needs to admit to all of the inappropriate behavior he was displaying. For me, I would want a written account of everything that he did. It's more for him to fully come to terms with everything that he's done to you and your marriage. You don't want to have to police your husband. You want him to make responsible decisions, communicate openly, and re-engage in your marriage. He needs therapy to figure out why he was making these choices in the first place. Now for the update. A few months after my last post, my husband and I went to a family barbecue at my parents' house. I was in a good mood and actually had a good time, apart from him. We were both trying to keep it together for the family. My sister and her family were visiting from out of town, and my brother and sister-in-law were there too, so it was good to see everyone. My brother Max mentioned a gaming tournament that was happening soon, and I could see my husband perk up. He was actually showing interest in gaming again, which he hadn't done in a while. I was just hoping it was a temporary thing and that he wouldn't get too invested again. Halfway through the barbecue, my sister-in-law, Rachel, casually mentioned seeing my husband's gaming profile online. I thought I was going to choke on my burger when she said that. Rachel said that my husband was very active and had already been talking to that same woman again. She said it all innocently, like it was no big deal, and I could see her husband, my brother, squirm a little when she said it. I was just sitting there, stunned, and tried to act normal when I saw my husband laughing with some cousin about gaming strategies. Later that night, my husband and I were driving home from the barbecue, and I confronted him about what Rachel said. He brushed it off immediately, saying they were just friends and that he had blocked her for good. I didn't even know what to say, so I just stayed quiet the rest of the way home. A couple of weeks later, we went to a close friend's wedding. The atmosphere there was festive, and everyone was in a good mood. During the reception, while we were dancing, my husband got a text and stepped away to answer it. Curiosity got the better of me, and I took a quick peek at his phone when he left it on the table. I saw a flirty message from that same woman, and it confirmed my worst fears. I felt like I was going to throw up. I confronted him again, and he claimed it was just a misunderstanding and promised to cut off all communication. We tried to rekindle our connection by going on a weekend trip to a nearby cabin. I thought it would be good for us to spend some quality time together. During the trip, we had some fun moments, but the distance between us was still there. On the last night, we sat around the fire, and my husband seemed distant again, just scrolling through his phone. I asked him directly if he was still in touch with her, and he denied it. After we got back home, I discovered a package on the porch addressed to my husband. Inside were some gaming accessories I hadn't seen before, and they seemed extravagant. I felt suspicious and decided to check his online activity again. This time, I found a hidden folder on his computer with saved chats from that woman. The messages were worse than I had seen before, with more suggestive conversations. During dinner that night, my husband acted normal, but I could sense the underlying distance. I casually brought up the gaming purchases and his online activity, just to see his reaction. He became defensive, insisting that it was just gaming and not a big deal. I decided to escalate the conversation, and that led to an intense argument. The argument reached a boiling point, and we both shouted at each other in front of my family. Realizing it was too public, we stepped outside for privacy, but continued to argue. My husband eventually admitted he had been talking to her, but insisted it was nothing serious. After that confrontation, we both took a break to cool down, and he went back inside. A week later, I invited my husband to sit down for a serious talk and laid out all my concerns. He agreed to seek help to address his gaming habits and the emotional distance we had. I guess it was a small victory, but I don't know what the future holds for us. Edit. After my previous updates, my husband and I have been working on our issues, though it's been challenging. He joined a support group to address his gaming addiction, which has shown some progress. Trust is still a major concern for me, and we're considering couples counseling to help us navigate our relationship. Am I the idiot for confronting my husband about his flirty texts with G and moving out? I, 34-year-old female, saw my husband's 34-year-old male iPhone message inbox screen and saw something suspicious and need advice, help, or thoughts as I spiral and work up the courage to confront him. There was a contact of just a single letter, let's call it G. I have seen G before, maybe about last year or so, and at the time I asked who that was because one-letter contacts are weird, and he assured me it was someone from work. I didn't press any further and forgot about it until last night. My husband was on the floor leaning his back on the couch, and I was up on the couch, so that was my angle and how I could kind of see his phone screen. I noticed his inbox has messages from me, his friend, his boss, a group text that includes me and his mother, and then G. I panicked and took a very blurry photo on my phone when he had his inbox, and when I zoom in, it's hard to make out exactly what the preview of G's text says. But I think it's this: good cause, I always want to see you. An emoji I can't make out exactly what it is. And I should be free. And the preview gets cut off, but I assume it's a let me know when you want to meet or something along those lines. How screwed am I? Is this totally shady? I know it is because why else would I have the instinct to take a picture of what I saw to try to confirm? But I feel like this text exchange could go either way. It could be totally normal, or he could be a huge dirtbag, and I'm about to discover it. I don't think it's someone from work. He works in a very stereotypically manly environment, so my gut is telling me it's a girl. My issue is I hate confrontation, and I also am scared to possibly uncover something or have him blow it over. What's the best way to go about asking him? As in, what approach should I take? Angry? Nonchalant? Also, it's been about a day since I saw this, and I didn't want to bring it up in the moment without being sure. Context: married for 4 years. He hasn't cheated or been shady since marriage. Things are good, so this is pretty random. He works a lot but shares his location, and where he claims he is always matches up when I check. He hasn't been overly nice or overly mean. In his free time, we're always together, so I don't know how he'd have time to have a secret something. And the kicker is, we're trying to start a family through fertility treatments that have cost us thousands of dollars so far and over a year of our time, so why or how would he be shady through all of that? Ugh, help. To add, I've never posted before. I use Reddit for fun stuff, but now I need internet strangers' advice. Now for an update. The original post was removed. I updated to follow the rules. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Check his phone. Do it right in front of him. He's your husband. If you can't even check his phone without him being defensive or you feeling uncomfortable about it, do you even have trust? Either check his phone or ask him what it says. Just be straightforward. Again, he's your husband, not some guy you've been dating for a few months. Comment 2. Just be honest, for goodness sake. Say, I'm feeling insecure about G. I saw them pop up on your phone. Can I see your messages? Don't sneak around and call G. Don't implant a tracker under your husband's skin. Treat the situation how you'd want your husband to treat it if he felt that way. Now, for the update. A few weeks passed after my last post, and I finally confronted my husband about the suspicious messages. I chose to bring it up on a quiet evening while we were cooking dinner together. The man was acting like nothing was wrong, so I figured I'd just sneak it in there. He reacted defensively, denying any wrongdoing and insisting the messages were harmless. Like, harmless? Flirty messages are harmless? Okay, sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night, buddy. The following weekend, we went to my parents' annual summer barbecue. I was dreading it because I had to pretend like everything was fine. During the barbecue, my sister-in-law Rachel pulled me aside to chat about family stuff. I thought it was weird that she wanted to talk about that, but whatever. She mentioned how her husband was acting strangely lately, hinting at a possible issue. My heart dropped because I was thinking, oh no, not this too. Rachel was shocked and encouraged me to keep an eye on things. A few days after the barbecue, I noticed my husband was getting texts late at night, which he claimed were work-related. Yeah, right. I started writing down the times and content of the messages in a notebook like some kind of detective. The atmosphere in our home got more and more irritating. Small arguments became more common, and I was just over it. We planned a weekend getaway to try to reconnect, hoping to ease the strain. You know, the usual stuff. During the getaway, I saw him texting a lot while we were out. Like, could you be more obvious? I confronted him again, leading to a heated argument outside our cabin. He called me paranoid, which just made me more suspicious. After getting back from the trip, I decided to check his phone while he was in the shower. I found more messages from G that were even more suggestive than before. I knew I wasn't crazy. Rachel invited me to a local coffee shop to talk more about the situation. At the coffee shop, she revealed she had her own suspicions about her husband. We decided to look into our husband's activities together because we were just done. We agreed to meet at a local bar that weekend to watch our husbands. That Saturday, we got to the bar, pretending to enjoy the night out. I saw my husband walk in with a woman who wasn't Rachel. The woman was the same one from the texts, confirming my worst fears. Rachel noticed the same woman and gasped, realizing both our husbands were together. We discreetly took pictures of what was happening. I called him while he was still inside, demanding to know where he was. He stammered excuses, but I told him to come home immediately. When he arrived, I showed him the pictures from the bar. The man went pale, realizing he couldn't deny the evidence. The confrontation escalated, and he finally admitted to enjoying the attention from G. I moved to my sister's house for a few weeks to gather my thoughts. We agreed to meet at a neutral location to discuss our future. At the meeting, he apologized and promised to end all communication with G. We agreed to go to couples counseling together to work on our issues. To answer a few questions, my husband admitted that G was someone from a previous job who had recently come back into his life. He was flattered by her attention, which he claimed was all that had happened. The argument during our getaway was about him working long hours, which he thought was the reason for our issues. Rachel's husband turned out to be innocent, as he was just planning a surprise party for Rachel. They are now fine. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.